Okay, this is the Unit 5 factoring review. I'm going to factor this quadratic. So I need two numbers that will multiply to 48, but combine to give me negative 16. We want it to multiply to give me 48. So 1 times 48 is 48, and negative 1 times negative 48 is 48. I know I'm going to need two negative numbers to get negative 16. Negative 2 and negative 24 multiply to 48. So does negative 3 and negative 16, and negative 4 and negative 12. But only these two numbers will add together to give me negative 16. So those will go into my parentheses, minus 4 and minus 12. So these are called my factors. Now, let's do the solutions. All I do to find the solutions is set my factors to 0. So set this factor to 0 and set this factor to 0, and then solve. So I can add 4 to both sides and I get x is 4. That is one solution. I can add 12 and I'll get my solution is 12. So these are my solutions and these are my factors. Now, if you want to know if you did this correctly, just multiply it out. X times x is x squared. X times negative 12 is negative 12x. Now do the next number. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times negative 12 is positive 48. Now, just combine the middle term. Negative 12 and negative 4 is negative 16. Everything else can just come on over. And notice, that's what we started with. So I know my factors are correct. Next problem. I'm going to factor this. Now, before I factor, I want to see if I can divide all three numbers by the same thing. And I can. 6 can be divided by 2, 4 can be divided by 2, and 2 can be divided by 2. So when I simplify this, 6 divided by 2 is 3. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So now it's simplified. Since I divided everything by 2, put a 2 on the outside. The reason why we put a 2 on the outside is because we want to be able to get back what we started with. 2 times 3 will give you the 6. 2 times 2 will give you back the 4. 2 times negative 1 will give you back negative 2. Okay? So we didn't really change the value. We just changed what it looks like. Okay, so now that this is simplified, let's go ahead and continue. Now, notice this example is a little bit different. My A value has a number 3. Whenever your A value is bigger than 1, you have to do A times C, which is negative 3, unlike the previous example. So the previous example, my A value was just 1. So you can go straight to the eye chart. However, this time, my A value is not 1. So now I have to do A times C. So 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. So that's why I put negative 3 here. So let's write the steps off to the side. So when A is not 1, you need to follow these steps. So first, multiply A times C. Then we're going to do a chart. So we're going to do our little eye chart and figure out our numbers. So two numbers that multiply to negative 3, but combine to 2, because this is our B value. I can do negative 1 times 3 and positive 1 and negative 3. However, only these two numbers will add to 2. So those are my numbers. So step number 3 is I'm going to put my numbers in my parentheses. So I'm now going to write this as x minus 1 and x plus 3. Now, do not forget, we have this 2 on the outside. We have a 2 on the outside, so don't forget to bring it along. Okay? Okay, now our next step, once we do our parentheses, is to divide by the a value. Now, my a value was 3. So I'm going to divide both of my numbers by 3. The next step is to simplify. Okay, so 1/3 is already simplified, so this can stay the same. This one, let's simplify it. 3 divided by 3 is just 1. So now we have simplified it. Finally, bring the denominator to the front. I'm just going to say bring bottom to the top or front. Bring broad bottom to the front. So bring the denominator to the front. So my factors are 2. I brought the 3 to the front. So now it is 3x minus 1. And then this factor just stays the same. So guys, these are called my factors. And remember, since I divided by 2 in the beginning, I need to have a 2 on the outside of my answer. Okay? We divided by 2's in the beginning, so that 2 followed along on the outside. Okay? Now, let's take it one step further and give the solutions. So if I wanted to do my solutions, set this factor to 0 and this factor to 0. And now we'll solve. So I'm going to add 1 and I get 3x equals 1. Then divide by 3. So this is one solution. The other one is x equals negative 1. So these are my solutions. You can also call them x-intercepts. You can call them roots. You can also call them zeros. All these words mean the same thing. Okay, so I have 2 solutions, 1/3 and negative 1. All right, let's do another problem. Now notice, this one is not in standard form. Standard form looks like this. ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. This is not in standard form, so let's put it in standard form. I'm just going to write this down again. I'm going to bring negative 6x to the other side, making it a positive 6x. I'm going to bring 20 to the other side, making it a minus 20. Now it is in standard form. So before we get started with the steps, let's ask ourselves, can 2, 6, and negative 20 all be divided by the same number? The answer is yes. They can all be divided by a 2. So 2 divided by 2 is just 1. So this will be x squared. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 20 divided by 2 is 10. So now it is simplified. Don't forget, since we divided by 2, 2 will stay on the outside. Okay, now guys, my a value is just 1. So I can go straight to my eye chart. I want 2 numbers that will multiply to negative 10, but combine to give me 3. So I'm going to list them. 1 and negative 10, negative 1, positive 10, 2 and negative 5, negative 2 and positive 5. These 2 numbers multiply to negative 10, but add to 3. So those are my two numbers. X minus 2 and x plus 5. Do not forget the 2 on the outside. If we divided by 2's in the beginning, a 2 needs to be on the outside. So guys, these are my factors. Let's talk about my solutions now, or I'll call them x-intercepts this time. My x-intercepts, in order to find them, set each factor to 0. So x minus 2 to 0 and x plus 5 equals 0. And now we just solve. So add 2, you get x is 2. Subtract 5, you get x is negative 5. Next problem. This is not in standard form. So we're going to have to rewrite this. So I'm going to write this again, 30x squared plus 2x. I'm going to move the negative 3x to this side, making it a positive 3x. I'm going to move this 10 to the other side, making it a minus 10. We're almost in standard form. Remember, standard form looks like this, ax squared plus bx plus c. We're almost there. Okay, so I'm going to combine my middle term. 2x plus 3x is 5x. So this is 30x squared. 30x squared plus 5x minus 10. Okay, now, before we start, is there a number that all of these can be divided by? Yes, all of these can be divided by 5. So let's simplify it before we start. Because if we don't, a times c is 300. That's really big. That'll be difficult to factor, okay? So we want to simplify it first. That is always the first step. 30 divided by 5 is 6. 5 divided by 5 is just 1, so that'll just be x. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So this is simplified. Remember, since I divided by 5 in the beginning, 5 will go on the outside. Now, this is my new A, B, and C value. So I'm going to write the steps over here again. So remember, these are the steps you need to follow when A is bigger than 1. In this case, A is 6. So first, you need to multiply A times C. So let's go ahead and do that. My A value is 6, and my C value is negative 2. So we're going to multiply A and C. 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. My B value is just 1. Just imagine a 1 there. So two numbers that multiply to negative 12. I'm just going to list them. Okay, so these numbers all multiply to be negative 12. However, only this one will add to 1. So those are my numbers. So step 2, we did an eye chart to find our numbers. Step 3, we're going to put them in the parentheses. So let me make some space. Okay, so I'm going to put them in parentheses. I have a 5 still on the outside, and my parentheses are x minus 3 and x plus 4. Step number 4 is to divide by A, and the A value is 6. So I'm going to divide both numbers by 6. On the test, I saw a lot of people dividing by B or dividing by C. That is incorrect. We have to divide by the A value, which is 6. Now, the next step is to simplify. So I'm going to simplify these fractions. The numerator can be divided by 3, and the denominator can also be divided by 3. So this will become x minus 1/2. The next one, we're going to divide both the numerator and denominator by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So we have simplified it. Next, I'm going to bring the denominator, I'll just call it the bottom for short. Bring the bottom to the front. So this is the denominator, bring it to the front. This will become 2x minus 1. Bring this denominator to the front. This will become 3x plus 2. So these are my factors. It would be counted wrong if you left out this 5, okay? The 5 is part of your equation, or it's part of your answer. Okay, now let's practice solving. Let's say I want the solutions, or I'm going to call them zeros this time, since these are interchangeable. My zeros, set the factors equal to 0. So 2x minus 1 equals 0, and then solve it. Add 1, so I get 2x equals 1, and divide by 2. So this is one solution, or 0. My other one is 3x plus 2. Set it to 0 and solve. So I get 3x equals negative 2, divide by 3. This is my other 0. Next problem. Okay, let's see. Before we get started, let's see if we can simplify this. Can these 3 numbers all be divided by the same thing? Let's think about it. Can they all be divided by 2? No, 25 cannot be divided by 2, so that's not good. How about, can they all be divided by 4? No, 25 cannot be divided by 4 without having decimals, and we don't want decimals. Okay, so we cannot simplify this. So we'll go ahead and start. Now remember the steps. Multiply A times C. A is 4, C is 25, so that'll be 100. The B value is 20. So 2 numbers that multiply to 100 and add to 20 is 10 and 10. However, if you struggle coming up with the numbers, start with 1, then go to 2, then go to 4. 3 doesn't work in this case. Go to 5, and eventually you'll find 10 times 10 is 100, and 10 plus 10 is 20. So these will go in your parentheses, x plus 10 and x plus 10. Now we're going to divide by the A value. This was the A value, so we're going to divide by 4. Now simplify your fractions. I'm going to divide these both by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And this is the exact same thing. Okay, so these are my factors. They're the same. You could also write this as x plus, oh, we're not done. Bring the denominator to the front. Bring the denominator to the front. So this can be written as 2x plus 5. 2x plus 5. And what I was going to say was you can rewrite this as 2x plus 5 squared because they're 2 of the same thing. So instead of writing it twice, write it one time and just put a little squared on it. Now, if you want to solve for your solutions, I'll call it x-intercepts this time. Remember, these words are interchangeable. Solutions, x-intercepts, roots, zeros, it means the same thing. Okay, so set this equal to 0 and solve. So subtract 5, you get 2x equals negative 5 and divide by 2. So that is your solution.